Hello and welcome back to the Gamer Crafting channel and this episode of Attempted Nerder. We all had our favorite Pokemon growing up. Mine has always been Bulbasaur, that delightfully grumpy little dude with the big plant on his back. It's a mood. So in this episode, I decided that I would do my very best to make a battalion of Bulbasaurs. To do so, I will be using a combination of silicone rubber to make the mold and a difference of resins. I will be using epoxy resin and I will also be using UV resin. So let's go ahead and get started. I want to see if it's possible for me to make a resin casted Bulbasaur like this, just like an army of sparkly, glittery Bulbasaurs. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't even know if I'm going to have enough silicone rubber at this point. I'm thinking maybe not. It depends. I don't know. It just depends. So I have to figure out when I'm going to put this in, but first I have to clean it up because you don't want to be making a mold of anything that's got like dirt on it, because then you're going to get like the weird dirt crumbs and stuff into the mold and into the silicone. We definitely don't want that because then we'll have like a gross mold with like dirt in it and it's going to create bubbles and it's going to be bad. So I'm going to go ahead and clean this up while I'm waiting for my glue gun to heat up and then try and look around for some sort of box or like a tin or something, but we have to make sure that it's deep enough because we need a little bit of clearance on top of Bulbasaur's head, and I don't know if I'm going to have that. I also don't know if I'm going to have enough silicone rubber, so stay tuned. Okay, I found this shipping box, which is deep enough, but it's definitely like way too big. Like that would be an immense amount of wasted silicone. So what I'm going to try and do is create like an impenetrable barrier, like here-ish, maybe using some of this cardboard off the sides, and I'm just going to tape the bejesus out of it, and then I'm going to see if it looks like it's going to be okay or not. This is very hacky. I'm pretty sure this is more tape than box. I'm also still unsure that I'm going to have enough. I'm a little bit scared. I'm a little scared that I'm going to like pour half of this and then it's going to go horribly, horribly wrong. But I guess that's what we're all here for, isn't it? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to glue this dude. I'm going to glue him to the bottom and hope. Oh my god, I'm hoping so much. So much hope. You can do it, dude. You can do it. I'm going to unplug my hot glue gun. And I'm going to mix up the rest of my silicone, the rest of it. Oh my god, I'm so scared. Alright, so nowhere near enough silicone. I'm definitely going to have to order more and hope it arrives soon, because that's not looking good. That's like only part of a mold. His little tummy took up way more silicone than I thought it was gonna. Alright, I'm gonna go order more. Wish me luck. We did part of this guy. I'm hopeful that me adding more silicone later once this has already cured isn't gonna be like a horrible disaster. Here's hoping. I'm scared. Hey, hello friends. An amount of time has passed. The silicone I poured is hard. However, I can see that some of it did leak into this other side, so I really need to like fill those holes up. I might use the glue gun to really make sure that all those holes are closed up. I'm thinking that's going to be better than tape. I'm also thinking that the next time I do this, I should definitely like invest in some Legos, because this is a pain. I'm for real scaring myself out of this mold. The other ones just really didn't turn out well, and the silicone rubber is so expensive. And this is obviously a very silicone heavy mold. And like, I definitely should have picked something smaller to try and be funny with, but I feel like I'm too far in now. So I'm sort of paralyzed by choice of using probably 40 pounds worth more silicone rubber to finish this mold, or calling it a loss and abandoning the project, because I still have to redo the button molds. I don't know, definitely feeling the most demoralized I ever have for an attempted nerder. I don't know if this is my jam, guys. It's just making me feel unhappy. I don't really know if I should even continue with this project or not, or just post it up to be like, yup, it was a horrible failure. I didn't do anything that I set out to do. It all turned out like garbage. Clearly mold making is not for me. But then I thought, what is resin if not silicone persevering? Okay, I've been working on this mold for like the better part of a week now, because I would add some silicone and let it dry, and add some silicone and let it dry, and add some silicone, let it dry, and then I'd order more silicone and let it dry. So it's done now, and I'm terrified to pull this out. Like, my heart is pounding. My heart is actually pounding right now. I am so afraid that I messed up this mold and like wasted a whole bunch of silicone and like a whole bunch of money. Like, I feel genuine dread in my soul right now. I'm scared. I'm not a very like visual person. I don't think that mold making is really for me. I'm gonna see what happens when I get the other silicone to make the second version of the button molds. But I don't know if this is for me, y'all. I'm not a very visual person in that I can't imagine in my head. I can't figure out in my head what this is gonna look like. Sorry, my hands are always like just perpetually gross. I can't figure out in my mind, like I know that the little Bulbasaur is in there, but I can't in my mind figure out what the mold is gonna look like once I take it out. And I had to keep going back to my resin group and being like, wait, I'm sure I've done it wrong, because how would this then work? And they were like, oh no, that's fine. And like multiple occasions. So I just don't know that mold making is for me, at least not 3D stuff. Maybe 2D stuff is gonna be more my jam. Oh god, I'm so scared. Also, I think your hair got stuck in the silicone. Is that on top? Oh, it's glue from the glue gun. Like, you know those little, like, thin strands of glue? Okay. Alright. Genuinely afraid. Genuinely afraid. Okay, judging by the timestamp, I know I just sped that all up for you in the video, but in the timestamp, it took me half an hour just to get it out of the cardboard box. You can see here, it's shiny on the sides because that's where the packing tape was. It is not shiny when the packing tape wasn't. And you can see the imprint of the cardboard, and again, this stuff, it just picks up dust and hair like an absolute beast. So definitely keep that in mind. You may not want a workspace like mine, you might want something that's a little bit better. So I haven't even gotten the molds or the blank out yet, which is that's like, to getting out of the housing is supposed to be the easy part, and I'm like just terrified now. Terrified. I need coffee. Oh my god, it actually worked. My heart is absolutely pounding, y'all. Oh my god. I was so afraid that this was going to break. I had so much fear that it was going to break when I was trying to get this out of there, because I didn't use mold release on this, which was, you know, another learning thing we can take. There's definitely, oh my god, my heart's pounding. There's definitely some flashing up and around the edges. This is part of the leg though, so I'm not going to get rid of that. It looks pretty okay. It's going to be a slightly textured mold, but that's fine, I knew that. This is the part, this is what I couldn't visualize, right? I couldn't visualize when it was in there, because the bottom of the box would have been here. I couldn't visualize how I was going to like fill this part, but obviously you don't want to fill that part. Oh my god. And like it looks so tiny now once it's in there, but this is obviously massive. And there's like a whole bunch of silicone over here that looks like it's not being used, but that's where the head is. Oh my god. I need to go lay down and collect myself. Point out this like sheen on my head. I am actually sweating from how stressful that was. We're not going to talk about my armpits, that's a different story, but let's just say the situation is similar there. It was time to test the mold, so I used some UV resin on a bright sunny day along with some fake flowers that I got in a craft D-stash. Alright y'all, I've been out here for like an hour layering UV resin and carrying it, and layering and resin, layering and carrying and layering and carrying, because I was like, this is going to be faster. Don't know about that. I mean, I guess technically it's faster. You can see that there's some bubbles in here. I'm not super worried about bubbles, except maybe that one is kind of large. Hopefully it doesn't take like a giant crater out of the side. It's looking pretty good. I think I'm like, it's cured. I have been carrying it, but I'm like a little bit worried. Like you see, it's like it's coming away from the mold fine. But I think I'm gonna wait until tomorrow to demold it. I think I'm gonna like let it blast in the sunshine. Normally, right? Normally at sunset, it is blazing sunshine on this balcony, and I complain about it all the time because it means that I can't do work out here because it's too bright. The one day that I need it to be bright, super overcast. Weather is trolling me. Anyways, as you can see, I just used some fake flowers or dried pressed flowers. You can't use fresh flowers in resin or they'll get weird. In here with just the clear UV resin. I might try doing an epoxy resin pour tomorrow, but I'm gonna have to do it in layers because Bulbasaur's head is too bulbous. Bulbasaur. My god, is that why he's called Bulbasaur? Bulbasaur because his head is so big? Anyway, I can't do an all-in-one pour because it would be, I don't have the right kind of resin for that. You need slow cure, and I just have like normal casting resin. So I'm gonna have to do it in some layers, otherwise that exothermic reaction is gonna get too hot and it could potentially melt my mold that I spent like a week making and a shed load of silicone and stress. So yeah, I might wait until tomorrow morning and let this just get blasted with the morning sunlight, and then I'll be able to show you. And I'm scared. Yeah, so I mean, it's looking good. There's some bubbles. I'm not super worried about that though. Here we go. I set it in a sunbeam for about 20 minutes this morning just to make sure it's all ready to go. You can see there's some major bubbles in here because I was rushing as I was trying to finish it last night. So I'm going to try and go ahead and get it out of the mold now. I'm a bit scared. I'm a bit scared even though I got the blank out. Okay, I'm still scared. Oh my god, he's so cute. Definitely some bubbles. That's okay, that's okay. Oh, look at his little head. That is so freaking cute. Obviously I had to make another one basically immediately, so I used UV resin again, and this time I used a mix of different glitters that I was trying to stir in, and then went ahead and demolded it. Okay, so I just demolded this little guy. I made him today. As you can see, it's sunny, so I would basically just pop on my respirator and gloves, come out here, do a layer, let it cure in the sun, go back inside for 20 minutes, rinse and repeat. He's got glitter in. He's shiny. And here's our friend, the OG. I'm amassing an army. An army of Bulbasaurs. So much resin though, y'all. Like an immense amount of resin. Like I could never sell these because the amount of resin would make them too expensive. I'm trying to decide if I want to like paint them at all or just leave them. I do need to do a little bit of cleanup on the bottom, especially on this dude. I was putting the last of the resin in, and I was trying to stir in the glitter, and then like this massive sunbeam came and just like settled right on where I was working, so I was trying to like stir in the glitter before I cured. I'm gonna try an epoxy resin one next. That one's gonna take a little longer because I can't just like leave it out in the sun for 20 minutes to cure. It's gonna be a multi-stage project, so I might do the first chunk tonight, and then maybe a chunk in the morning tomorrow, and another chunk tomorrow evening. That might be a good idea. I might do that. So far, so good. The next Bulbasaur was made with 3 different layers of epoxy resin. I couldn't use all in one layer because the exothermic reaction may have melted my mold. So this was the 3rd layer that I am doing here in this time-lapse video, and you can see that I am putting in some resin scraps. This is to use up the resin scraps so that they don't end up in the garbage, and also to mean that I use a little bit less resin when filling the mold, which is a good thing to do with larger molds like this. Okay, hey everyone, so this is the first time that I've used this mold with epoxy resin. So epoxy resin, you need time to cure rather than sunlight. It took me about 4 days because I couldn't do it all in one shot, because then you're putting too much resin together and then you risk it flash curing due to the exothermic reaction, which can then ruin your mold. Just to be clear, this line here isn't a split, it's a line from where I had the tape in that box. Sorry, my hands are gross. I was dyeing a lot of yarn today. Alright, so we're gonna demold this little guy. Oh, it's pretty stuck. I don't want to rip my mold. Oh my god, that was such a workout. I had to like brace it against myself to get enough leverage to get that cylinder out. There we go. Easy peasy. Oh, look how cute he is! He's so cute! Look at the little sparkles on his head! I don't know if I'll do another epoxy one just because it took 4 days and I had to be out here every day checking on it, putting more in. But I will be damned, that looks really good. Obviously I need to clean up the bottom here. It wasn't as, I don't know that it wasn't as even, but definitely a user error. Oh my god, that turned out so good. Hey there, y'all. So after demolding the other one, I decided that I was going to do another one with UV resin, because UV resin is just going to be a bit faster rather than waiting 4 different days for the different layers of epoxy resin to cure, because I really want to get this video out for y'all, because it's been taking an age. As you can see, I've been painting the inside of the silicone mold. I'm painting it with this. This is Color Shift pigment. It's expensive, which is why I am painting the inside of the mold with a paintbrush rather than mixing it into the resin. If you mix it into the resin, you would need like an immense amount, and this stuff is like 10 pounds per like tiny little pot, and that's because it's cosmetics grade. So obviously something that's cosmetics grade is going to cost more for a lot of different reasons. I haven't really been able to find Color Shift pigment that isn't cosmetics grade. I don't know if that's just because there's not really a market for it, but anyway, all I can find is these tiny little pots. It's gonna look amazing. I think it's gonna look amazing. I hope it's gonna look amazing. So I'm just trying to get in there, all the little like nooks and crannies and stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish that. You can see here the spot that I spilled a tiny bit. You can kind of see how, like pigmented it is, or here in the lid. It's interesting because it's kind of like a blue to purple shift in the pot, but when I used it for a different project a couple weeks ago in a craft vlog, you can see that it's got a bit of yellow in it as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish this and I'm gonna start layering, but as the sun is starting to set, wow, that's so blurry. As the sun's starting to set, I'll only get one layer done tonight. The rest will have to be done tomorrow, but that's okay. All right, y'all, this little dude, this did not go to plan. I was curing and curing and curing and curing, and I couldn't figure out why this thing wasn't curing. And then I realized that when I've done the other UV resin stuff, I'm counting on some of the UV light to permeate through the side of the clear, transparent silicone. But I used color shift pigment and it blocked the UV light, so it wouldn't cure properly. Even in bright sunlight, it just wasn't curing. It just really wasn't. I was using the light, I was leaving it bright in sunlight, it just was not curing properly. I eventually took it out because I thought, oh, well, maybe it'll cure better once I pull it out of the mold. And like, it did, it is cured now. But like, dude is worse for the wear having done that. Like, it's weird and mushy on the head. He's got a hole missing in his head. Right there, he's got a hole missing. He's got like another, woo! He's got like another hole missing over here on his leg. I don't know what's going on here. Sort of in the butt area. Like, it's just... Poor guy. I think I might try to fix him, but he's definitely never going to be a showpiece. He will just be a memorial. Look, there's another giant hole. He'll just be a memorial to me absolutely failing with this one. This is an example of an attempted nerder gone wrong. I then decided to try again with the color shift pigment, but using epoxy resin this time instead of UV. Hey, howdy y'all, it is now the next day. This actually took probably closer to 28 or 30 hours to cure. This new resin that I'm using, it is epoxy resin, 2-part, it's a 2-to-1 ratio. This needs a lot more help in the exothermic reaction department, which is annoying because it means that it took longer to cure and I had to leave it in a little heat box longer. I realized, because it has been a bit warmer lately, so I thought, oh, well, I'll just leave it out, it'll cure, but it wasn't. I had to put it in the heat box or it wouldn't cure. So far, from what I can tell, it is taking up that color shift pigment on the sides much better. You can't see it now, because obviously the resin isn't up there, but it's taking it up much better. It looks like it's going to turn out a lot better than the one I tried to do with UV resin. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do another batch right now. I'm going to mix it up, and then hopefully tomorrow I can do the last one. Which means Tuesday I will be on molding, and then hopefully I can try and do one more UV resin. I'm going to get myself a stronger UV light because that little flashlight is not cutting it for this bigger mold. And then I'll be able to show you 5 different Bulbasaurs. Wait, 5? 4, 5, 6. 6 different Bulbasaurs, but one of them is that failed one. Good morning, everyone. The final layer is done. Right, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna demold this and hope that it turned out better than the poor guy who suffered some complications. As you can see, I did make the resin, I did put purple mica powder in it because I wanted to make sure that if I wasn't completely 100% thorough with the color shift pigment, that it wouldn't leave like weird clear spots, that it would still look kind of uniform. That was my plan anyway. So hopefully my plan worked. So I'm gonna go ahead and demold this so that you can all see. And there he is. A little bit of weirdness on the side there, but look. Color shift Bulbasaur. Hey, hello everyone. It is the last day that I am doing any of these. Well, on camera I'll probably make a few more, to be honest. But those will be in upcoming craft vlogs. Because I just kind of want to get this video out there. It's been a while since I've posted an attempted nerder on YouTube. This has taken far longer than I had intended. So let's go ahead and get this guy out of here. So this is You can see in the footage there that I did what's called like a dirty pour, which basically, yeah, and these really stick in here, don't they? Which basically means you're pouring two different colors or kinds, not kinds of resin, but two different colors, or two different mixes at the same time, which I have tried before with some other projects, but I haven't tried with one of these guys, so we're gonna see how it turned out. Hopefully without ripping my mold apart, which kind of seems like what might happen right now because this resin is just really sticking hard. And I don't know why it's happening more now than it was before. I'm a little bit stressed. A little bit stressed. A little bit stressed. Because you can see it's like sticking a lot. So let's just try to be as careful as possible here. I don't super know why this has happened. Oh no. Of course the last one is going to be the one that rips the mold apart. I mean, I guess you want the last one and not the first one, right? But it is definitely ripping pieces of the silicone, which is not good. There he is. All right, and there he is. Worth it, I think. He might be my favorite. I went for sort of a galaxy thing. I put a little random glitter in here. It is kind of a shame that there's some texture because it means that I can't sand without messing up the texture. I mean, I guess I could try it, but I don't have a power sander, so I'd be here for another month trying to do that. Here was the first one that I made. This one was made with UV resin. I put some fake flowers inside. You can't really see the fake flowers unless they're right up against it. Wish my camera would stay focused on the right thing. So it turned out pretty good. Not as good as I maybe had imagined because the ones in his head aren't very defined, but that's okay, we love him anyway. One that I made also with UV resin. With this one I was mixing glitter to try and achieve like an ombre kind of effect. This is the first one that I made. I made it with UV resin and some fake flowers. You can't really see the fake flowers unless they're right up against where the mold was. You can't really see the flowers otherwise. They're sort of hazy when they're inside. So still pretty cute. Not 100% how I had anticipated that they would come out. I didn't realize the very slight texture. That texture is because I cast a 3D printed object. So because of that, it has a slight texture. I didn't realize how much that texture would obscure what was inside. That's okay, we still love him. The second one that I made, also with UV resin, I was going for sort of an ombre effect with the glitter here. So I started off with just this light green glitter, going kind of mixing all the way down to this. And I think that it was mostly successful, but you can see the bands of each fill level. So you can see how many times I had to come back outside, add a little bit more, 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 add a little bit more. Until it was done. You can't really see it from front on though. He did end up with this weird line in his face and I'm not really sure why that happened. It hasn't showed up on any of the other molds because when I first demolded it I was like, oh no, that must mean that the mold has a leak in it, that there must be a crack in the mold. But I don't know why that happened with this one particularly. It kind of goes around to this side. So he's got a big crack in his face, but that's okay, we still love him. Broody Bulba is probably one of my favorites. I used epoxy resin for this one, so just normal epoxy resin with a 2:1 ratio, the kind that has to set over a long period of time. I used a lot of black pearlescent mica powder to get that really dark cast, which I think works really well with that texture. And I really like, just to show you, I really like how the little glitter, sorry there's a giant truck going by. I really like how the little glitter looks kind of like little freckles. Excellent. Excellent Bulbasaur. 10 out of 10. Super love this dark and broody Bulbasaur. As for this one, as for anything that went wrong, there is a small hole there. There's a small hole here in the butt, and I don't know why that happened. But that's okay. We still love them. Bulbasaur had some difficulties. It's okay. We still love them. This one was made with UV resin. I had painted the inside of the mold with I had painted the inside of the mold with color shifting pigment. It's primarily used in cosmetic purposes, but a lot of people use it in resin as well. It's expensive, so instead of mixing it into the resin, most people just paint the inside of the mold to save, because the pigment powder is very expensive and you need lots and lots of it in order to saturate. You would need lots and lots of it to saturate through all of the resin. So I painted the inside, and then I couldn't figure out why it wasn't curing. Finally had to take it out of the mold, and that's when this happened. And that's when this happened. And then that's also when this happened, and when that happened. It's alright. We struggled there for a little while, but you know what? Still a functional plant pot. Still does what it was intended to do. We still absolutely love this Bulbasaur. This Bulbasaur was also made with the color shift pigment. However, I used epoxy resin this time instead of UV resin so that it wouldn't be dependent on sun rays, which is why the other one got messed up, because the UV pigment was blocking the UV light into the transparent silicone mold. So I used epoxy resin with this one, and it turned out a lot better. You can definitely see the sort of color shifting, cool properties. However, there's also some of this going on, and there was pigment that was still stuck inside the mold that didn't come out with the resin, which I haven't seen before, but that just tells me that maybe using color shift pigment inside a mold that is gently textured like this, you know, it might not turn out exactly the way you want it to. It might have a bit of a hard time getting into some of those crevices. However, I will say that this Bulbasaur has a very Skyrim-esque I took an arrow in the knee vibes, so of course we still love them. This is the last and final Bulbasaur, the one that I just demolded this morning. I did an epoxy resin pour with this one, and I did a dirty pour technique, so I was pouring multiple colors of resin in at the same time into the mold. The first pour I used a sort of royalish blue. I used mica powder for that, and then I also used black. Mica powder is really good if you want opaque rather than transparent, and given that this Bulbasaur does have some slight texture, I figured there wasn't loads of point in trying to keep it more transparent because it's going to get kind of blurred anyway. So I kept it with the mica powder, so I used the sort of royal blue and black in the first pour, which would have been down here by the head. I also added a multitude of different glitters, which it's not super obvious, but I think it gives it a really nice sort of subtle effect. You can see more of the black glitter on the inside here of the mold. You can see more of the glitter on the inside here. On the second pour, which would be down by the little leggies, I used more of a cyan. So moving away from the royal blue into more of a cyan. I still used black, and I also switched up the amount, so I used more cyan than black. And, like, result, I'm really pleased with this. We've got a little bit of weirdness down the back here, like a little line. A little bit of a stretch mark maybe there, but that's okay. Stretch marks are beautiful. We have earned our stretch marks by having a human body. Well, Bulbasaur doesn't have a human body. Bulbasaur has a Bulbasaur body, but that's okay, still earned. And I used a lot of different glitter in it, and I think that I really like this sort of weird matte effect of the glitter through this textured, this lightly textured mold. So that's all of them. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 Bulbasaurs. 6 of them. I had tried to get 7, but there just wasn't enough time. I'd have to push this back a whole nother week, and I don't really want to do that because I kind of want to move on to another project now instead of making endless Bulbasaurs, because I'm going to be honest with y'all, Bulbasaurs are low-key expensive to make. Absolute outright liar. I did make 7. I literally walked inside to grab something else and found this one sitting on the counter. I forgot that I made this one yesterday. So for this one I used UV resin, as you can probably tell. I put a big D20 into his big old brain there, thinking that it would look really cool and like a D20, but again, I underestimated how much that texture would sort of blur, so you can't really see that it's a big D20 in there. It was a failed D20 from one of my dice experiments, and it was a nice way to reuse it, but instead it just looks like Bulbasaur's got a big old brain, and you know what? We love Bulbasaurs with big old brains, so I'm totally fine with that. I also used, you know, some glitter. You can see some fill marks here, which with UV resin I feel like me not working in direct sun would have helped that. I did stir up the resin, but it was also really shallow pores, which probably didn't make that any better. So as you can see, I had some other bits in here, some other sort of resin experiments. Again, it was just like a really nice way to reuse stuff that was probably just going to sit around for a little bit longer. It's a nice way to sort of use these larger molds to use some of your other stuff. You can see there's like a dribble of resin sitting here, and I don't know which one that's from. I'm gonna be honest with you, this is probably the culprit, but that's okay. We love him. So I did make 7 Bulbasaurs, 7 whole Bulbasaurs, 7 sores. No, I should stop, whatever that was. Alright, hello my lovelies. This is towards the end of the episode of this episode of Attempted Nerder. I hope that you enjoyed my endless, I mean it's not super endless, but my big pile, my army, my absolute battalion of Bulbasaurs. In any case, I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that you maybe learned something about resin. I definitely learned a lot about resin. I learned a lot about silicone making. Or not making the silicone. I learned a lot about silicone mold making. If I were to do everything again, I would first of all decide not to mold something that was quite so large, because that turned out to be rather expensive. This is an expensive hobby, I will say, and although nobody asked me to make a battalion of Bulbasaurs, I just went ahead and did it anyway. But this episode, like, it kind of racked up the costs a little bit. And again, I realized that nobody asked me to make a battalion of Bulbasaurs, but like I did, and I hope that you enjoyed it. I think that we're going to go ahead and we're going to open a coffee. We're not going to do a Patreon because that just requires too much and it would just be a lot of extra undue pressure. We are going to open up a coffee, and I'll put the link down below. If you feel like throwing us a couple of pounds or a couple of bucks because you liked this video or other videos that we've done, then like much appreciated. But if you're like, no, I'm not giving you money for a battalion of Bulbasaurs, that's also fine. There is no expectations here. I'm literally just putting it there because I've had messages from a few people asking how they can help support the videos when they rack up a lot of costs like this, and I guess that's it. Because between everything, there was 3 packs of silicone, so that was, just to make that mold was about 60 pounds, as in dollars, 60 pounds worth of silicone. And then each of these little guys uses 250 grams of resin, so an amount of resin. I switched between brands a bit, so it's harder for me to do those calculations in my mind. UV resin is a bit more expensive than epoxy resin, but then there was like this big epoxy resin shortage because of that big storm that happened in Texas, so I had to get epoxy resin from a different brand than I would normally get. That was a little bit more expensive. And also, we're not looking at my craft station right now because it's a disaster because that epoxy resin that I bought, while it sets up really nicely, it's not tacky or anything, it's fine, it needs a lot of heat to cure. It hasn't been warm enough out here for like the dribbles to cure, so whereas my normal epoxy resin would be fine, I'd be able to just peel it off the next day, this stuff is still like a little bit tacky, like the little dribbles on the silicone mat. So I've been having to clear it off with 70% rubbing alcohol. Side note, don't ever do that and then use like a heat gun or you're gonna set things on fire. Don't do that. As always, I just want to add, whenever you're working with resin, either UV or epoxy resin, make sure you're using all of the appropriate PPE. Make sure that you're using nitrile or vinyl gloves. Don't use latex because sometimes the resins can eat through that. Make sure that you're using the right kind of gloves. Make sure that you're wearing a respirator. Like, just make sure that you're staying safe with your crafts. You know, not all crafts are created equal. Just like you would make sure that you wore a dust mask if you're doing lots of wood carving and sawing, you have to make sure that you use a respirator and gloves when you're working with resin. Although, can I just say, like, throughout all of this, even when I was like about to give up on the project, and the days where I was like, this is gonna turn out terribly, the mold is, please don't judge my succulent for having those dry leaves. I promise that I do water it now and then. So even though I would have done things differently if I were to do this again, I wouldn't mold something quite so big. I don't know if I'd make so many of them. I wouldn't make the same mistakes that I made, but you know what? This is Attempted Nerder. That's what this video series is all about. It's about trying things and just seeing what happens and then sharing that with all of you. And you know what? I kind of like their delightfully weird faces, because you know what? Lots of us have weird faces, and we are all deserving of love, just like these Bulbasaurs that are going to go, and I'm going to probably keep 1 or 2, but the rest are going to be sent off to friends of mine that live around the world to be homes for their little succulent plants too, because you know what? I love my friends, and I want them to feel loved, and if a little weird Bulbasaur makes them feel loved, then, you know, job done. So we will try to be getting up some more videos in the why is everything so loud all the time? Anyway, I am going to finish this video and I am going to go and photograph and put up the Pride 2021 collection, which is going to be a fundraiser for the Albert Kennedy Trust, which is a charity that helps homeless LGBT teens and youth. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go do that. I'm going to work on editing this. I'm going to get this video out for y'all today. And then if you're watching in the future, I hope you're already enjoying a bank holiday. And if you're watching further in the future than that, then I hope you have some days off coming to you very soon. Thank you so much for watching. We appreciate each and every one of you that are here to watch us. Please do follow us on Instagram. We are at Gamercrafting on Instagram and on Facebook. So come say hello. We also have a Facebook group. I will drop the link to that in the comments if you would like to join. Everybody's still very loud. That was literally like a giant pallet of hay bales. I will put the link to the Facebook group into the description below. If you would like to join, make sure that you answer all the questions, and you also have to tick the box that says you agree to the group's rules and regulations, otherwise we cannot let you in. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you on the channel next time.